Mrs. K here. So today we are going to go over how to draw a line landscape. So we know what some lines are. We've been learning about them for a couple weeks now. But what is a landscape? A landscape is a picture of outside. So we are going to draw a picture of outside, and similar to our hand and how we filled in that Zentangle last week, we are going to fill in this picture with a bunch of different line patterns as well. So the first thing that I have to do is draw my landscape. So my landscape is going to have a couple different layers. It's going to have flowers in the front, waves, mountains, and then some sky. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is draw the thing that's closest to us, which is the flowers. I'm going to draw the flowers kind of big, like 2 or 3 finger spaces high. So I'm going to draw a big arch, and then I'm going to draw 2 more. Just like that. Okay, and I'm going to draw with a Sharpie. You don't have to. If you want to draw with a pencil, that's totally fine. And then if you want to trace it with a marker later, you can. You can leave it with pencil. Anything is fine. So now I have to add some petals onto our flowers. Super easy. Just little bumps that go all the way around. You want to make sure that they're big enough that you can fill them in with a pattern. Mine are like the size of like a fingerprint. Okay, so now I have my flowers. The next thing that we're going to draw is the waves. Now watch my finger when I draw the waves first. It goes up, back and around, up, back and around, up, back and around. So now let's draw it with a pencil. Up, back and around, up, back and around, up, back and around. All right, so now I have some ocean waves. The next thing that I'm going to do is draw 2 mountains. 1, 2. And the last thing I'm going to do is draw a small circle up in the corner for a sun. And I'm not going to draw little flames or anything around it. I'm just going to leave it like a plain circle. It can even be a moon if you want it to be a moon instead. Okay, so I'm going to switch from my marker, which is thick, to a thin pen, just so you can tell the difference between my outside lines and my pattern lines. Okay, so we're going to start with the flowers first. So the flowers are actually in what's called the foreground. That means it's in the front. I'm going to start by just making polka dots inside my flowers. You can tell that my polka dots are about the same size, and I'm not coloring them in, but you can if you want to. I'm just trying to draw nice, neat circles and filling this space. So before I said the word pattern, and you might be thinking, what is a pattern? Well, a pattern is a design that repeats. So even though polka dots are not a line, I'm using lines to make them. If I color them in, they could look like a dot that I made with a marker. And the dot is a start to a line. So a design that repeats, a pattern, a design that repeats. So my polka dots repeat over and over again to fill up this little space, this little part of the flower, so it becomes a pattern. So now let's add a zigzag pattern onto our petals. So remember, zigzags are nice and pointy. A pattern, a design that repeats. So now my pattern with these zigzag lines are thin black zigzag lines. That's the pattern. Another word that I used earlier was zentangle. Zentangle. What is a zentangle? Well, one, it's a made-up word. Zentangle is a picture that's filled in with a bunch of different patterns. The word zen, Z-E-N, means to stay calm. And so sometimes people think that making a bunch of different line patterns is a way to calm your mind down. If maybe your mind is busy and if you're having a really hard time focusing, some people think that doing designs like this are really relaxing. So that's why they're called zentangles. So let's move on to my waves. Now my waves are behind my flowers. This is what we call the middle ground. Foreground, think of the word before. Middle ground, think of the word middle. It's in the middle of my picture. For my waves, I'm just going to trace that same wave line because it's a little bit hard to do, and so this is our time to practice. So I'm just tracing not the first line that I made, but the same shape. Oops. And remember, the waves are behind the flowers, so I don't draw through my flowers. I want to make sure I tuck it behind my flowers. You can see right there. Okay. And so the further I move down the page, the closer I get to the flowers, the more I have to not draw through my flowers and then just tuck it behind my flowers. I think I only have room for maybe one more. Okay, so now I have a pattern inside my waves. I have a pattern inside my flowers. Let's do the mountains. I'm just going to draw diagonal lines. I'm going to make them about the same width apart, like the same width of a pencil, just like I kind of did down here. When we did our polka dots, we said we wanted to make the polka dots about the same size. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're leaving the space about the same size. This way, if you wanted to go back and color it in, maybe you wanted to do a colored pattern like blue, white, blue, then you would have the same size blue and white lines after you were done coloring it in. This picture doesn't need to be colored in, but if you want to color it in, that's totally up to you. You can definitely do that. So this mountain is behind this wave. So notice I did not draw through my wave when I was drawing any of my mountain lines. And this mountain is actually in front of this mountain because it sits on top of it. So we want to make sure when we do these mountain lines that we don't go through the first mountain. The mountains are kind of still in the middle ground. You can say that they're in the background. That wouldn't be wrong if you said they were in the background or the middle ground. Okay, now what's this back here? This is the sky. So the sky is also important, so we're also going to fill in the sky with some patterns. But it's important to remember that the sky is the thing that's furthest away. So any lines that we put in the sky are not going to go on top of our mountains because it's behind them. And our sky is in what's called the background. So I'm going to trace kind of around my sun or moon. Just making some circles. Now, remember I said I can't go through my mountains. So if I wanted to continue the circle, it would go all the way down here. But because this mountain's in front, we don't see the rest of that line. So now for the rest of my paper, I just make these arch shapes. Going all the way to the end of my paper, filling up the whole thing. Perfect. All right, guys, so this is all done. This is my line landscape. So to review, a landscape is a picture of outside. A foreground, like these flowers, are the thing that's drawn biggest and is in the front of my picture. The middle ground is the things that are in the middle of my picture. They're medium size. The background is the thing that's furthest away and it has the least amount of detail. And it's also up higher on the picture. So the foreground is like down in the front and the background is in the back of the picture. It's like all the way up at the top. And then pattern is our last vocabulary word. And patterns are designs that repeat. Okay, guys, I hope you have fun and you learned a lot. Make sure you turn in your picture and you take the quiz. See you later.